YouTube, we back in this bitch, man. Raw Ceezy back in this hoe. You feel me? Today we about to react to some different shit, bro. I told y'all, bro, I'm not on the same shit, you feel me? I haven't even been on social media for the last fucking like 6 days, bro, and I'm trying to keep it that way, you feel me? You realize how much bullshit you don't give a fuck about when you don't go on social media, bro. We live in an introvert lifestyle, my nigga, so it is what it is, nigga. If you don't like it, nigga, fuck off. But hey, nigga, we about to watch The War on Drugs, the secret drug boss of Jamaica. So we about to learn about Dudus, you feel me? The coke, man. If you know that song by Tory Lanez, smoking is dope. Hey, feel like I'm Dudus. Yeah, nigga. Probably don't know who he was talking about, but every Jamaican knows who Dudus is, alright? Feel me? This is The War on Drugs, Jamaica. Oh, I always got this shit on. No fucking trip.
The year is 2010. An American military spy plane circles in the air as soldiers fire mortar shells into densely populated civilian areas while taking fire from heavily armed militias. Over 3 days, over 70 civilians are killed. But this is not a war. I
remember this time too, bro. You know what's crazy? I was supposed to go to Jamaica with my dad and my brother that summer too, bro. But he said we couldn't come, you feel me, because there was a war going on. You feel me? But we ended up going for that Christmas, you feel me, 2010. But I just remember that shit.
Zone in Afghanistan or Somalia. This is a drugs bust in Kingston, Jamaica.
Police in Jamaica are calling for nationwide tranquility, urging people to remain calm following the arrest of a reputed drug baron and gang leader.
A few miles away, tourists are sipping rum and smoking weed in resort hotels. And to be fair, this is no ordinary drugs bust. This is the massive military operation it took to bring down Dudus Coke, also known as the President.
His real name is Christopher Michael Koch. Now the man considered to be one of the world's most dangerous drug kingpins has been captured and brought to justice.
This is how a narco warlord mixed drugs, violence and political connections to wield power throughout Jamaican society. This is the story of Dudus Coke, aka the secret president of Jamaica. Dudus Coke's rise to power is rooted in the brutal gang violence that has scarred Jamaica for half a century, and how this violence has been manipulated and encouraged by the country's political elite. When Jamaica gained independence from Britain in 1962, the country quickly came to be dominated by two political parties, the left-leaning PNP and the more pro-American Jamaican Labour Party. In particular, two leaders, Michael Manley of the PNP and Edward Seaga of Labour, divided power between them, swapping stints as Prime Minister for decades.
On the Michael Manley campaign trail, it's a day of spot meetings deep in the agricultural heartland of rural Jamaica.
I never understood why Jamaicans go so crazy over that shit. Like, why do they care about, you feel me? Like, why do they go so hard over the fucking political shit? You feel me?
He caps his message with the cry, "Forward with socialism," but later denies that he aims to establish a second communist Cuba in the Caribbean.
These two men emerged as the first political leaders in independent Jamaica. They had a kind of messianic aura about them. People looked to them for new paths for the independent Jamaican society.
And this political rivalry played out on the streets. Each party made alliances with gangster bosses known as Dons who ran certain neighborhoods. The semi-official deal was that the Don would deliver the votes of the people in their area, and in return, they could run organized crime syndicates with protection from the police.
The Jamaican Don really evolved first as a political enforcer. If you happen to be residing in a PNP community or a JLP community, then the enforcer's job is to enforce that political loyalty sticks, whether you like it or not.
These alliances between politicians and gangsters would erupt into open gang warfare, particularly in the run-up to elections, as each party tried to intimidate the other's supporters.
One of the most important aspects of the election has been the violence that's marked the campaign. And whilst politicians have argued, gunmen have been shooting it out in the streets.
As the murder rate spiraled out of control, rumors circulated that weapons were being supplied by the CIA and Cuban paramilitaries. Neighborhoods became known as garrisons, literal fortresses which police couldn't enter, with gang bosses wielding almost complete control. And just as the violence was getting so bad that not even Bob Marley could fix it, something happened to make it even worse. The war on drugs.
This is crack cocaine. seized a few days ago by drug enforcement agents in a park just across the street from the White House.
Damn, nigga, that's some big-ass crack.
There be no mistake. This stuff is poison.
In the 1980s, cocaine and crack cocaine exploded in popularity across America. Jamaica sits exactly halfway between Colombia and southern Florida and became a key trafficking hub. This fundamentally changed the balance of power between the politicians and the dons. Instead of the gangsters waiting for handouts and building contracts from the government, they now found themselves at the center of a multi-billion-dollar trade.
By 1980, there is this influx of cocaine coming through the Caribbean corridor into the United States. And these political enforcers, they are now making a lot of cash from trafficking marijuana and trafficking cocaine.
The most important garrison community in Jamaica at the time was the West Kingston ghetto of Tivoli Gardens. As the cocaine trade began to boom, Tivoli was controlled by a gang known as the Shower Posse, strongly allied to the Jamaican Labour Party.
The Shower Posse got its name because of its brutality. The Uzi and the Tech 9, those were guns that the Shower Posse really loved. They would take out their opponents by showering bullets.
Jamaican gangs like the Shower Posse and their rivals, the Spangler Posse, spread out across the US and the UK. Unlike the Colombian and Mexican trafficking groups, who concentrated on the wholesale side of the cocaine business, the Jamaican gangs also began taking control of street corner dealing in American cities. And this brought them into bloody conflict with local American dealers. The Jamaican gangs were used to fighting full-scale street battles with automatic weapons and brought a whole new level of violence to the American gang wars. The US was already experiencing a spike in homicides throughout the 1980s, but the arrival of the Shower Posse and other Jamaican groups is thought to have accelerated this, with estimates of them being responsible for over 1,400 homicides by the late 80s. This was when Dudus took control of the Shower Posse and massively expanded its drug trafficking operations. It's also when people started calling him the President. Dudus dramatically reorganized the Shower Posse's operations in the US, adopting a franchise model where individual cells were free to run themselves across America as long as they sent money and guns back to Jamaica. But back in Tivoli Gardens, his authority was absolute.
He is the supreme kind of leader of Tivoli Gardens, this almost state within the Jamaican state.
The entrances to the garrison were blocked by barricades, so police couldn't enter. The Shower Posse were the law. And this is where the story gets complex, because for a murderous gangster, Dudus can also claim to have helped his community. Dudus ran significant charity and welfare programs in Tivoli, including after-school clubs, help for the elderly, and food handouts. And through legitimate companies, he put on major music festivals featuring Jamaica's biggest stars, as well as receiving over $1 million in government contracts, through which he employed local people.
He provided access to things which the Jamaican state has either been unwilling or incapable of providing. So there was a healthcare facility in that community. There's a sports complex, a very good one, by the way, in that community. He was loved in the community. He was respected, but he was also feared.
Many people in Tivoli appear to have genuine loyalty and even love for Dudus.
The Crips, we have blood, I'm a bigger terrorist than Dudus. Leave him alone. We not give up with Dudus, we love him bad, and we are gonna dead for him.
He's name-checked in songs by everyone from reggae legends like Bunny Wailer to UK grime MCs like Skepta. On the other hand, Dudus was unquestionably responsible for murders and extreme violence. In his trial, people testified that his form of justice involved cutting people who crossed
Why they draw him like that though?
him with hatchets and chainsaws. And eventually, Dudus's power brought him to the attention of the DEA. Secret memorandums were drawn up whereby Jamaican police would run wiretaps on the president, but the operation would be run through Washington. The investigation took over 5 years and involved the US giving Jamaican police over $3 million. But eventually, in 2009, the US issued an extradition request.
The then Prime Minister of the day, Bruce Golding, happened to also be Member of Parliament in Western Kingston, which is where Tivoli Gardens is. And Coke is from that area. So the Prime Minister was hesitant with the United States around extradition. What you saw happening was a kind of international relations standoff.
These scandals proved too much for the government, and eventually they sent in the police. But Dudus commanded loyalty across Tivoli and had an army of gunmen to back him up. The police literally couldn't enter the garrison to arrest him, so the army moved in.
My fellow Jamaicans, good evening. This afternoon, the Cabinet, in emergency session, took the decision to advise the Governor General to issue a proclamation declaring a state of public emergency effective 6 p.m. today.
The Americans supplied a military drone, and soldiers even fired artillery into Tivoli housing projects.
A lot of human rights violations happened in that process. Innocent persons certainly got caught up and were killed. Several residents gave horrific stories of what they had to undergo during that incursion.
Them won't let us out. We can't come out and buy food. We're hungry. Can't come out. Still a stitch.
No one ever charged Dudus for murder, racketeering, or political corruption. This was a drug bust, organized by the DEA on trafficking charges. But it was a drug bust in which the army was deployed, over 70 people were killed, and which caused a political scandal across Jamaican society.
To police here, he was a drug dealer, gun smuggler, and leader of a gang called the Shower Posse. Coke was arraigned Friday.
Damn, the US DEA came and locked that nigga up. I didn't even know that.
In a Manhattan federal court, he pleaded not guilty to federal drug and weapons charges.
Dudus eventually wound up in court in New York and was sentenced to 23 years. Not only is the Don system still flourishing, but despite all the people killed and all the millions...
23... This nigga got less years than Cartel? How the fuck did Cartel get fucking 35 years, bro? Whatever he did. And this nigga got 23.
...spent bringing down the president, the drugs are still flowing into the US. In fact, as America has poured resources into its southern border, the Caribbean is now seeing a new uptick in drug smuggling, particularly from the emerging narco state of Venezuela. Jamaica itself voted to decriminalize cannabis in 2015. But as long as the American war on drugs continues, its gangsters will continue to get rich, rule the garrisons, and corrupt the island's politics.
We'd like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs.
Alright. That's the real Jamaica for y'all niggas, bro. Y'all think that shit just pretty and fucking weed and bitches and shit and dancehall, bro? Nah, nigga. There's plenty different sides of Jamaica, bro. We from St. Thomas, bro, like the countryside, you feel me? But everywhere, bro, you know, there's always ghetto, bro. St. Thomas, I ain't gonna lie, it's not that dangerous, you feel me, as like Kingston and shit, you feel me? But hey, nigga, there's a murderer everywhere in Jamaica, bro. There's danger everywhere, bro. There's a nigga that'll nyam your food anyway in Jamaica, bro. Dead ass. But hey, nigga, that's Raw Ceezy reaction. Shout out to all my yard man them. And I please. Hey, we out. Pow!
Yeah, I was looking for some dollars just to go eat and spark. Yeah, didn't wanna be a scholar, I didn't meet the mark. Yeah, tryna stay away from the project soon as I reach the charts. Yeah, the streets get deeper than water, you gotta feast with sharks. Yeah, I got a problem, and I gotta solve it. Talk down on my come up, I see it, but nigga, I never acknowledge. I'ma get it on my own, I never admitted to college. So when you see me on the stage, don't try to tell me that you called it. Yeah, and now you so wanna be like Escobar. Yeah, I was on bullshit, but I ain't catch the charge. Bust on the road, he Russell getting extra large. Yeah, my shooter like goalie, he gon' protect and guard. Yeah, you was a weak link, you get picked.